Welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Zervos. I am an Associate Director of Admissions here at Clark. I work with a first-year population of students that are from the states of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. And I also work with our transfer population on campus. I'll be your host for tonight's session, which is going to focus on hands-on learning at Clark. We're going to dive into what it means to get that hands-on experience in and out of the classroom and why those experiences are so important. I'm joined by three panelists tonight, Professor Mark Miller in the Department of Political Science, Teresa Quinn, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program Manager and Instructor in the School of Management, and one of our student ambassadors, Alexis Rustem. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about what they do here at Clark. But before that, I just want to offer a few tips to kind of go over how this technology is going to work tonight. Oops. So if you have any questions for us throughout the presentation, we're going to ask that you use the Q&A feature. So there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So if you're looking to ask any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. We'll be checking those throughout the presentation and responding to some, but I will also make sure to leave time for questions at the end of the presentation as well. You may not see your question right away, but know that we are checking them and we'll try to answer as many as we can on air. If you're having any technology issues, if you can't see or hear us for any reason, please use the chat feature and we'll be checking the chat to see if we can help work out any technology issues. So we're going to kind of dive into what does hands-on learning mean at Clark? As I mentioned, actually, before that, I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. Sorry, I missed that. So why don't we start off with Professor Miller? Have you go first.
Sure. I'm Mark Miller. I'm a professor of political science. I am also the director of our interdisciplinary program in law and society, which includes our intercollegiate mock trial team. And I'm the university's pre-law advisor at Clark.
All right, and Professor Quinn.
Get that. I remember to turn off my mute button. That's the first for me. My name is Teresa Quinn. I am the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program Manager. I also am, I teach entrepreneurship and innovation classes, and I'm also a first year advisor. So I teach an FYI class in innovation and entrepreneurship.
Thank you. And Alexis.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Rustem. I am currently a junior at Clark in my second semester here, and I study international development and social change with a concentration in peace and conflict studies, and then a minor in environmental science. When I'm not at the library or making myself dinner or doing general walks around Worcester, I can typically be found with my improv team, the Peapod Squad, or playing club volleyball.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to just give us a brief introduction to what does hands-on learning mean at Clark, and then I'm going to turn it over to our faculty members to kind of tell you how they incorporate that into their classes on campus. But just to kind of give us a kind of brief overview, I think what we really mean when we say hands-on learning is that we want students to be able to take the learning that they are doing in the classroom and be able to translate that into real world experiences. When we say we give a lot of hands-on experiences here, that's kind of what we're talking about. We want them to be able to kind of make that connection between the classroom learning and those real life and real world experiences. And there are a variety of ways that our students can get this real world experience. And so a number of them are offered here at Clark. So one may be research. We have a whole separate webinar on research. So if you're interested in learning about research, I'm actually doing one next Tuesday, specifically on undergraduate research at Clark. But with Clark being both a research university and a liberal arts college, you'll have a lot of faculty who are running various research labs or the opportunity to work on independent projects with them. So that's a way to kind of get some of that hands-on work is through research. Another way is through internships. Internships are great experiences that allow students to kind of utilize what they're learning in the classroom in those real world settings and maybe hopefully help them figure out what they might want to do for a career once they leave Clark. We do have students who will pursue paid summer internship opportunities. We also have an academic internship program for juniors or seniors who can do academic internships for course credit. We also have these courses called Problems of Practice courses, or POP courses. Problems of Practice courses are really those courses that build into the curriculum, this hands-on learning that we're talking about, and give those experiences to students to kind of give that kind of connection between the classroom and the real world in those courses. We have many extracurricular activities at Clark, so about 100 different student clubs and organizations. But many of those extracurricular activities, whether that's engaging with the City of Worcester or working with nonprofits or things like that, will allow our students to get that hands-on experience. Many of our students also study abroad. Many of our students who go abroad also engage in research or an internship while they're abroad. So kind of giving them that real world experience in another country. And then I think many professors and many classes at Clark also really stress the importance of being involved and engaged within the local Worcester community. So you'll find that a lot of our classes encourage that engagement and really teaching students how to get involved in the local community. So now I'm going to turn it over to our faculty members. I'm going to ask a few questions about how they do this in their classes and why these experiences are so important to Clark's approach to learning. So I'm going to turn it over to Professor Miller and Professor Quinn. I'll start with, how do you incorporate hands-on learning into the classroom at Clark? And I'll start with you, Professor Miller.
Sure. As you've probably figured out, most of my classes are American law-based classes. And so when I'm teaching constitutional law, for instance, the students have a dialogue with me over a US Supreme Court case. And they will be helping their classmates understand the important aspects of the case, but they're also talking to me about the important aspects of the case. So that's a way that the cases can become more hands-on for them, and something that could be abstract, but is actually more hands-on. Another way that it works is through independent research projects. And because of the pandemic, we had an extended intersession this year, all of January, most of February. And I actually worked with 5 students on independent study projects over that intersession. I don't know that I'll remember everybody's title, but I can tell you a few of them. One student was looking at presidential crises, comparing President Trump's reaction to the pandemic with President Hoover's reaction to the Great Depression and President Roosevelt's reaction to the Great Depression. Another student was looking at the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and was looking at the ways that both Congress and, more importantly, the Supreme Court had approached the issue of voting rights. And he ended up saying that he thought that the approach was too narrow, that we needed greater protections for voting rights. Another student was looking at the US Supreme Court cases of federalism and sort of tracing what he saw were the important lines of cases in the area of federalism and states' rights. And another student was looking at free speech issues on university campuses. So he was writing about free speech issues and how he thought universities should approach this important question. So a lot of students will do independent studies. When I'm teaching US judicial politics, they are doing research papers embedded into the class. So a lot of my students are doing either research papers for class or independent studies. Another thing that I deal with a lot is internships. And a lot of pre-law students want an internship because they may not know if law is the right thing for them. And I'm just as happy if they learn what they don't like as opposed to what they do like. Worcester is a great city for legal internships because we have no law school here. So our students are not competing with law students for internships during the regular academic year. And they get some very good hands-on experiences at those internships. One other thing I'll mention before I forget, we do have in the political science department, we have a Model United Nations team, which does very, very well. And in the Law and Society program, we have an intercollegiate mock trial team, which just came off their subnational tournament. So they were able to win a bid to the subnational tournament at their regional tournament. And one student actually won a Best Attorney Award at the subnational tournament. So I think Alexis may be familiar with her. But there are ways to bring your talents and put them to use on either of these teams. You can work with Clark students. And again, it's Model United Nations team, or it is the mock trial team. Have I gone over everything you need, Nicole? I've done a lot there.
That sounds great. I'm going to ask Professor Quinn to answer the same question. How do you kind of incorporate this hands-on learning into your classroom and your classes at Clark, and why do you think this is so important for our students?
Mark and I have worked together in the past with bringing in students, and I know that he's very passionate about the students coming in, and it's just great to hear some of the things that he's talking about. But what I really kind of keyed in on was when you said bring your talents to Clark, and that's kind of how I approach as being the program manager of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation program, is that we kind of revamped the entrepreneurship program a few 3-4 years ago and brought it to be very hands-on. I mean, that's a kind of all it is. And the way I look at entrepreneurship and the way the program was really crafted was, if you have a talent, we believe that innovation and entrepreneurship can support that talent. So we complement everybody's interest is how we look at it, how we tailored all our classes. So with the entrepreneurship for hands-on learning, the very first class that you take in the entrepreneurship program, you start a small venture. You start one, and we look at it as if it's your skill, your interest, you run with it and you actually physically start this small venture, small business. And even today we had a pop-up. So, we give the students the avenue to get out there and actually practice getting their products and services out to the Clark community. And, with COVID, we can't get it out to the community, the Worcester community, but that has happened in the past where we invite the Worcester community on campus too. So with that, that's the very first class. And really the objective of that one is, if all dreams came true, is a student would start some sort of entrepreneurial venture and then graduate with that 3-4 years later, depending on when they take the class. And so the classes in between are all hands-on, building that original business or venture to make it even better. And all those are hands-on too. So if you, as an example, if you're going to do some marketing for your venture, you actually have to do it. You have to have an Instagram or a TikTok or something and develop a marketing campaign. You don't, write it out on a pretty paper. You actually have to get out there and do it. And we see that students are very motivated by this because it's their venture. We're not saying, okay, everybody has to do this or everybody has to do that. It's their venture. And then I ran this picture over to Nicole earlier today of the pop-up or the food truck there with the pop-up roof. That just got to campus yesterday, and I am so excited about it because it is the capstone, one of the capstone offerings, I should say, of the entrepreneurship minor. So you're going through and you're doing your entrepreneurial venture, and now we've brought you a food truck to take it on the road and show your venture. So you don't necessarily have to be selling food, even though it has a full commercial kitchen in there. You could just ride along with whoever's doing the food sales and sell your products and services or promote your cause, your venture, whatever it could be, wherever this truck will go. Now, we also understand that not everyone starts a business their freshman, sophomore year and is still working it towards their senior year, but they've gathered all these skills along the way. And so this truck is also going to be integrated into the capstone course to take your skills out to the community and partner with community members with their small businesses. They might need a food truck. They might need a venue of sort, and we're providing the venue. And we're also working with them with the skills that they've developed, such as marketing, customer engagement, working with vendors, whatever it could be. And so it's a process starting, like I said, with the small business in the beginning, learning those skills, and ending with this wonderful food truck. But we do have other options too for the capstone. So we hit all those points too that were brought up in the beginning. Is several of our classes are problems of practice, lots of extracurriculars that support students that are trying to start their own ventures. We don't have necessarily a study abroad push, but one of our classes is to reach out and work with, let's see if I can make sure, Sierra Leone. Oh geez, I can't remember what the other name of the country was, but right now we're doing it online. We're helping these small businesses in Sierra Leone and Ghana. And eventually this class is actually going to go there over the intersession. It's not going to be intersession. It's going to be that small break during the winter session. So we have that. And again, like I said, with the food truck community engagement. So I'm sorry, I can yammer on about this all night because I'm just so happy about it and passionate about it, but I am going to stop there.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you, could you talk a little, I know you just came off of working on the Eureka Challenge. Would you talk a little bit about that opportunity for students? Because I know that's kind of like an outside of the classroom experience where students can kind of get that hands-on work. So could you tell us a little bit about that program?
Absolutely. Friday was the big day, and the students actually applied to the Eureka program. And what it is you apply, we give you a little bit of seed money to help your venture, whatever it could be. When we had social causes and we had businesses and a little bit of everything in between. We ended up with 15 strong businesses out of the 30 that actually applied. And then we mentored them through October to this last Friday. And then what is great about this is these are the ones that have decided, you know what, I really do want to pursue strongly with a lot of additional mentorship, a lot of extra activities outside the classroom that promote entrepreneurship and small business development, venture development, social causes, etc. And so over these months, they've had all those things. And then at the end, which was Friday, they present to a panel of alumni, Clark alumni, and they say, this is what I've done over the last few months with the money that you gave me to invest into my business. And this is where we ended up with it. We're still planning on going on. Would you give us some more funding is basically what it comes down to. And we had an exceptionally generous alumni donor, and we were able to give out over $20,000 of additional funding. And I try to stay away from the first, second, third. I like to see, of course, the ones that might have done a lot more work, a little bit better, more funding, but I like to see that everybody gets some funding to continue on with their ventures and their entrepreneurship. So that was Friday. That was very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. But again, it's more support for anyone who's interested in pursuing entrepreneurship.
I remember one of our students told us that I think in one of his first entrepreneurship classes that the professor gave everybody $1 and was told to kind of go out and start their own business. And I thought that was such a really creative way to kind of get students to kind of get that real hands-on learning with giving them just $1 to kind of get their businesses off the ground. So this sounds like a great opportunity for students who are kind of looking to get that hands-on experience and really learn how to do that.
Yeah, we've had businesses from the Worcester Free Fridge, but that's a venture. But then we've also had somebody who does late night ramen deliveries, and he has an entire website set up to take orders and then delivers it on Friday and Saturday night in the middle of the night. What young people can do, and a little bit of everything in between. We have jewelry, we have clothes, we have so many wonderful things. We have an author who wrote an environmental book of What We Leave is the name of his book. And we support all that. We support all of it and try to help them get better.
Yeah, you can always tell when this class has started because we get a slew of Instagram follow requests. And so now I follow multiple Clark businesses. I have voted in the Eureka Challenge multiple times. Everybody kind of gets involved. And I've also gotten boba and also chocolate covered strawberries from different Clark businesses and bought a really nice handbag. So.
Yeah, the chocolate covered strawberries, he's still in business. And this started, I want to say, yeah, he's a senior. He started his freshman year. So they just keep on going. He's yeah, doing very well. A lot of them really are.
That's great. Well, thank you both.
And thank you, Alexis, for voting and participating and supporting your fellow Clarkie entrepreneurs. I appreciate that.
Hey, I gotta.
Yeah.
Alexis, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you some questions about your experience as a student and kind of what this whole hands-on kind of motto has kind of meant to you. So what is, when we talk about hands-on learning as a student, like what does that term mean to you and how have you kind of seen that in your classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously I've taken a few POP courses, so problems with practice courses where, we get more into the Worcester community, or we get more into kind of practicing the things that our professors are teaching us throughout the year. For example, international negotiation and mediation with Professor Michael Butler. We did a simulation, even online last semester, a negotiation simulation that was absolutely fantastic. And that lasted 2 weeks. We were part of this really intense back and forth over, global health bills that we had to continue editing and kind of working through and meeting with people one-on-one and like doing that actual negotiation and putting in practice the theory that we had learned in class. But for me, mostly, I think from what I've experienced, and specifically within the department, international development, community and environment, hands-on learning means to me that I'm learning from people who have done the work. So, professors of mine that have been out in the world and made mistakes and really gotten to know the field. And so that's really important to me, right? I can name like multiple professors. My advisor, Denise Bebbington, who does work on extractive industry or fighting against extractive industry in Latin and Central America. My minor advisor, Morgan Ruel, who does work with subsistence farming and seed preservation in Ethiopia. Just all of these people who have done work outside of Clark. In high school, a lot of the hands-on learning was like going to a lab for chemistry or whatever. But now hands-on learning to me, as well as doing my own things, means I'm going to office hours and I'm learning from people who have legitimate experience and who have made mistakes, because it's very easy to make mistakes, unfortunately, in the field of international development, and who have really kind of been able to do that. But I think my favorite hands-on learning experience that I've had was in a forced ecology class last semester, where I got to do all of my measurements for lab and everything by myself in the Arboretum, in the Hadwin Arboretum, which is a few blocks off campus. So I got to like measure a tree and do all that, take little hikes every Friday morning for lab. It's really cool.
Great, thank you. And I know you've done some internships or had some other experiences that may have been a little bit like outside the classrooms. Can you tell us kind of about those experiences and how that kind of contributed to the hands-on learning that you're getting at Clark?
100%, yeah. So I was lucky enough this past summer to intern with Lawyers Without Borders. I was supposed to go to DC, and I got a really nice grant from Clark to kind of get some housing there, to take the bus every day to my job. It was going to be very exciting, but unfortunately I did it in my childhood bedroom on the computer. However, I still got handed a lot of responsibility that I wasn't really expecting, but that's what an internship is for a college student. I kind of was expecting them to treat me with kid gloves, but they said, okay, here's the stuff you need to do, get on it. And there was a gravity to the situation that I had never experienced before, which was, this is a real world issue. Real people are expecting this work. And it needs to be done well. And I think one of the most influential projects that I worked on was a project that was supposed to work with local NGOs in Tanzania to combat human trafficking and to kind of disseminate information locally. And this law firm that Lawyers Without Borders had been working with, created this facilitation guide for dialogues surrounding the issue of human trafficking, talking about it, giving information, stuff like that. And it was 90 pages, and it was supposed to be translatable into Swahili, which it was not. The legal jargon was insane. No offense, Professor Miller, legal jargon is great. But, this was not translatable at all. It was way too long for what it needed to be. And I found a lot of flaws in it. I still have the document with like 298 notes that I made. And I went to my program coordinator and I said, Brittany, I don't think this works. And she read it over and she was like, yeah, I see what you mean. And that was, a kind of moment where I got to have this hands-on work. And I said to her, can I like make a kind of crazy suggestion? She goes, oh yeah, go for it. And I was like, can we switch this into two separate things? Can one of them be for, the facilitators? Can one of them be for the actual NGOs? And maybe I can help with that in any way. And she goes, oh yeah, design the outline for one of those, for the facilitator one. And so I've designed an outline for this organization, for this work that they're doing, and they're kind of keeping me updated as they go. But I got to do that because when I was when I had an opportunity to do hands-on learning, I advocated for what I was interested in. And then I made choices to like actually be honest about what I thought about the work that was being put into that organization. And that was a huge learning experience for me because I was like, oh, wow, people will trust me. And if I advocate for things that I'm interested in, which is facilitation practices and dialogue practices, I can get to do meaningful work that I'm passionate about, and that I can do that work well.
Yeah, that's great. And I think your example is a great, example of students who are doing internships, who are like doing meaningful work in their internships, right? So you were able to have this internship and really, because of the knowledge and the classes that you took at Clark, it sounds like you're really kind of able to have an impact on the organization and really kind of get that hands-on experience.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my classes at Clark, specifically within the international development field, disillusioned me to a lot of the romanticized notions I had about NGO work, to be quite frank. And so I definitely look at things like that with a more critical eye now, which I really appreciate. And I think is kind of the way that everyone should look at like charity work and NGO work and development practices as a whole.
And when you got that internship, how did you find that internship? Was that through Clark, or was there kind of any like support that you had kind of through the, I know you said you got a grant and things like that. How was that process?
To be completely frank, I found the internship outside of Clark, but I did get a grant through Clark. I got the LEAP scholarship, and I had to get a faculty mentor, an alumni mentor. So I reached out to someone who had been doing the master's program when I was a freshman, and I said, oh my God, I know you're kind of interested in this sort of stuff. Would you help me? And we met up every few months on Zoom, of course. And she told me about the work that she was doing, and she kind of explained to me like how I could get the best out of my internship. And I did a lot of networking with her and with different Clark alumni through that scholarship. And honestly, because of Zoom and because it was all online, I had to navigate a lot of kind of difficult stuff, which is feeling detached from my work environment, things like that. And Michelle Flint at the career counseling office, and all of that really, really helped me out with that through check-ins that we had because I got this money from the university.
That's great. It sounds like, from your experience and from the Eureka Challenge with having alumni mentors and things, it sounds like there's a really great alumni network that can help our students with these types of experiences and kind of continuing to get that hands-on work, whether it's through an experience like the Eureka Challenge on campus or an internship or just kind of learning about different careers. So that's great that you were able to reach out to someone.
100%. I mean, resources are like right here at Clark, and then Clarkies are like right here. And I think you just kind of have to move an inch, and then there's just a whole bunch of stuff right in front of you.
That is so true. That I really like how you said that. That's just that little inch between them. And even some of our internships through the entrepreneurship program are with some of our recent graduates who have got their businesses off and running, and so they're always willing to work with their Clarkies.
Agreed.
Right. And that reminds me of something that I forgot to mention. In normal times, I would take a dozen students to Washington, D.C. to observe oral arguments at the Supreme Court of the United States. And what we would do is fly down on a Sunday morning. They'd have the afternoon in D.C., and then Sunday evening, we'd have dinner with a variety of Clark alums, many of whom are lawyers, but not all of whom. Some of them were working for the government, some of them were in interest groups, some of them were doing various things. Then Monday morning, we would go to the U.S. Supreme Court and hear oral arguments on two different cases. I spent a year working at the court as a judicial fellow. So I would have the students meet with the current judicial fellows in the afternoon. And those are fellows at the U.S. Sentencing Commission, the Administrative Office of the Federal Courts, the Federal Judicial Center, and the Supreme Court of the United States. Then late Monday afternoon, we would go to Capitol Hill. The Capitol is, of course, right across the street from the Supreme Court. And we would go and meet with Clark alums who were working for the local congressman, Congressman McGovern, or Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, or a variety of other politicians from across the country. And we would meet with Clark alums, and then we'd run off to the airport and come back to Worcester.
Yeah, that's another great experience too that I think showcases how your professors have all this experience that you can gain from their knowledge and their work experience, but also how they're able to connect you to alumni and other great opportunities that you can learn from outside the classrooms. That's another great example. So I'm going to turn it over to the audience to see if we have any questions. So if you would like to submit a question for any of our panelists, please put those in the Q&A, and we'll go to those and we'll read out what we can and try to answer any questions that you have about anything from hands-on learning, research, internships. You can ask our professors about the classroom experience, or Alexis, any of her experience as a student at Clark. So I'm going to answer this one live and pose this one to Alexis. Can you discuss any more hands-on learning in the environmental science field?
I 100% can. And I also just went to the Clark website, the department website, and I'll link after this some environmental science research that's currently happening. Because unfortunately, because of my bad brain for numbers, I am only a minor in environmental science. But I think that a lot of the time when hands-on learning that happens in the environmental science field it happens in natural places within Worcester, right? So I talked about the Hadwin Arboretum, going to different reserves around Massachusetts, and making sure that you learn within the context of where you are before you learn anywhere else. That was really important to me, especially when I took Environmental Science 101. We would take a lot of field trips. We would learn specifically about New England climates in terms of environmental science and use that as a case study. So that was really important to me, as well as the fact that I think 60 to 70% of our students participate in research, and 60 to 70% of our students are not typical STEM majors, right? They're not just plain biochem, et cetera, right? So the research aspect of Clark goes so far beyond, I think, what you would typically consider as the people who do research in college. And I think that's a really important thing to remember when you're thinking about Clark, is that we're liberal arts, but we're also research, and those go hand in hand. That's really important. Given that I'm saying that, I only know about really research that faculty members have done, that they've kind of brought students in on. I don't know as much about, hands-on learning that students may have done in specific classes, because those are usually higher level than I'm at. All I know is that I've been able to collect sample data from a few different parks and reserves around Worcester.
So thank you. So I'm going to pose this one to Professor Miller. We have a question about, what does hands-on learning look like for international relations or political science majors? So I know there's an international relations track within the political science department. So maybe talk about the political science department and maybe the international relations track.
Sure. As Nicole was saying, in political science, we have 3 different tracks. I teach in the American politics track. We also have comparative politics, which is looking at various regions of the world, like the Middle East or Russia or Latin America or China. And then we have international relations, which is country-to-country relations. It could be war and peace, it could be trade, it could be a variety of things. So Alexis is an international development major. That is a totally different program than the international relations track in political science, although it sounds like she's taken some international relations courses in our department. Hands-on learning for our majors are really whatever it is that they want to pursue. I certainly have students who have, lots of students who've interned for the local congressman, Congressman Jim McGovern, who just happens to be the chair of the Rules Committee in the House, which is one of the most important committees in the entire House of Representatives. He has interns in his Worcester office. He has interns in his office out in near Springfield or somewhere out in the western part of the state. And of course, he has interns in his Washington office during normal times, perhaps virtually during the pandemic times. But students can do internships politically. We've had a lot of students in international relations who've had internships at the UN itself in New York. So they can intern at the UN. They can intern with a variety of groups. There's a group that helps immigrants in the city of Worcester. It used to be Lutheran Charities. I believe it's recently changed its name, but it helps both with immigration law questions and other questions, and a lot of that immigrants have, be it housing or be it learning English or a variety of things. And we have students who intern with them. Students will do, in political science, students can do a lot of independent studies. Almost all of our faculty are willing to do that. So whatever the expertise of our faculty is, broadly stated, we're more than happy to work with students. And as Alexis said, many of the classes will do simulations. When I teach a class on the US Congress, I actually have the students role play members of a congressional committee and offer amendments to a bill, and then have to vote on these amendments to the bill offered by other students. So there are a variety of things in international relations or comparative politics. I know one of our comparative politics faculty does simulations of war and peace negotiations in the Middle East. And there are lots of ways that students can get involved, limited only by their own imaginations, I would say.
Thank you. This question I think is super important. So it is hands-on work something that Clark uniquely or particularly emphasizes? And what percentage of classes roughly might incorporate some type of hands-on work? So I'll leave that open to whoever wants to answer it. I will start by saying that this is the third institution that I've worked for in admissions. And I think that, in my opinion, I've worked at a couple of other liberal arts schools. I think Clark is definitely a place that I've seen that does a really great job of this kind of unique kind of hands-on approach that I haven't seen elsewhere. So I think that's something that I've noticed just in my time in working at other institutions, that this is something that, we have specific pop courses that builds it into the curriculum, but I really see this as kind of like, you'll see this widespread throughout the Clark community. So that's something that I think is really interesting, but I'll let our panelists answer this one.
I just want to kind of also preface this a little bit by saying, I remember when I came here as a freshman and everyone was doing, all the seniors that I met were doing, capstone projects or thesis projects, stuff like that. And so many of them that were presenting at Fall Fest, or, what is it, Spring Spree Day or
Academic Spree Day.
Academic Spree Day, there we go. So all of these like academic presentations, so many of them had done their own research. They had taken a hand in their own research. It wasn't just like reading through a bunch of stuff. They were doing the work themselves. And that is something that I was hoping to do this summer and when I went abroad, all of which was not possible due to COVID, unfortunately. But my advisor and I are actually currently figuring out how I can do some field work next summer. So that stuff is very much on everyone's minds. In addition to that, Clark advisors don't really have as many advisees as other universities typically, which helps those advisors help you get to more hands-on opportunities. I'm sure Professor Miller and Professor Quinn would agree with that. At least I hope they do.
Yeah. Another thing I guess I would say is Clark is unique in that we really are a research university, meaning research is done by students, by graduate students, by faculty, sometimes collaboratively, sometimes individually, depends a little bit on the field and discipline. But we're also a liberal arts college. So students can learn a wide range of things in the different classes. I had a student who is currently a law student at Harvard, And his letters of recommendation, he had one from me, but he had one from a professor in the English department and one from a professor in the French department. So he was able to reach out and do work with a lot of different professors and a lot of different fields. So I think our hybrid nature, we're both a research university and a liberal arts college, enables us to be more hands-on in a lot of ways than some other places.
Agreed, very much agreed. The entrepreneurship program is exceptionally hands-on. And we support, like I said earlier, it's a complement to all the other majors, interests, fields of study that are going on campus, and then kind of help you get that out into the real world. Do your own, like they've said, your own research on what it is that you want to change in this world, and by actually getting out there and doing it.
Great, thank you. So this question I think is really important too. So a question for either faculty panelists or student panelists: does having a clear commitment to providing ample opportunities for hands-on learning help new students hone in on what their major might be? So maybe a student who may be undecided, how is kind of having all these hands-on opportunities help them figure out what that potential major might be? So Alexis, I know you raised your hand. Would you like to go first?
Question so much. Specifically, actually, this thing in particular has helped a lot of my friends find the CS major or minor, which is Community Youth and Education Studies, because we have a class called Urban Complexities and Urban Schooling, which actually brings students into classrooms in Worcester, where they teach, or where they teach alongside teachers, or where they learn from teachers, are present as a class aide, things of that sort. And that actually helps a lot of students realize, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I like. I understand this kind of hands-on work. So that definitely happens. And one of the cool ways that happens is because of our liberal arts program. Our requirements that you might have can be filled with, there's no one set class that you have to take at Clark, right? Unless it's like within your major. So all of our different requirements, trying to fulfill those as an undecided major. I was undecided originally when I came into Clark, and exploring through the program of liberal studies helped me figure out what I wanted to do, which led me to how I will be doing my hands-on learning in the future, and how I've done it through environmental science and through international development. So I think it definitely helps. Yeah.
And from the class that I teach, it's the FYI, the first year intensive, and it's innovation and entrepreneurship, and creating a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. And the thing for me in particular, and Clark as a whole, they do this too, but for me in particular in this class, is I'm always going back, what is intrinsically motivating to you? What kind of things do you want to explore on campus? I try to get them out to as many different facets of the Clark community as possible, so they can experiment in their own ways with the different majors, minors, interests that are going on, the research. And we really have branched out in many different directions. And students, since entrepreneurship is only a minor, I have to get them out there to a major. An FYI professor is also the first 2 years as an advisor to these incoming students. And so it's my responsibility to get them out there and to get a major, find a major that they'll sit with. And this class helps them explore that.
And I would just say that again, students have to take a course in a variety of categories for the program of liberal studies. And if they're interested in sort of working with the community, there are a lot of professors at Clark whose own research and the research of their students is community-based. So they can sample that and see if it's what they like. Or they can do classes like mine that are a bit more traditional, but yet nevertheless allow a lot of individual student research and so forth. So Clark is a place where people can follow their own passions, and they may not know exactly how to package those passions, but we can help them with that, figuring out what it is they want to do through their academic careers.
I think that's such a perfect way to put it, because what I've noticed about Clark students is they are very passionate about what they want to learn, what they want to study. But I think it's that close relationship with faculty that you'll get at Clark, and these hands-on opportunities that'll kind of give them the package to kind of figure out how that will go for them. So another question that I think is important is, are there an abundance of easily accessible internships or other experiential learning opportunities beyond Worcester? For example, do students go to Boston for some of these opportunities? So I know, Professor Miller, you in normal times would take students to DC. So are there other ways that students kind of get these opportunities beyond Worcester?
Sure. I've had students intern in Boston. We do have commuter train service in and out of Boston from Worcester. But of course, it's a question of how much time are they going to spend commuting versus how much time are they going to spend on the internship itself. Earlier, I think someone mentioned study abroad. I've certainly had students do internships in London and other places around the globe during the regular semester. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities during the school year in the greater Worcester area. During the summer, a lot of students can get internships. Maybe they don't put them on their transcript, but they get great experiences. Mm-hmm. And so we can certainly help them find things wherever they want to be, wherever they can travel to.
I should also mention that we do have, in addition to study abroad, we have a study away program. So for students who may want to study in a different city, such as Boston or DC or somewhere else in the United States, they can choose to spend a semester in another city at another university as kind of sort of a study away program. So that's another way that you could kind of move beyond Worcester and get some of that sort of hands-on experience through an internship or taking some classes in another city.
For DC, the study away programs are internship-based mm-hmm. programs. So if you want an internship, a mixture of internship and classes in DC for a semester, certainly the study abroad and study away office provides those.
Could maybe talk a little bit about how hands-on learning has been impacted by the pandemic. So how have you sort of had to pivot a little bit with your hands-on learning, and how has that looked a little bit different?
Alexis, do you want to tell us about life in the pandemic?
I could. I can let Professor Quinn go first, though.
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think for me, it's been a little strange, obviously. How could it not be? But my professors have handled it really, really well. I think that Clark also handled the general transition really well. Professors are being understanding. They know that it's pretty exhausting to continue with online classes, even if you really enjoy the subject. And they've made a lot of allowances for students' mental health, which I really appreciate. And I know a lot of my fellow students do as well. But, I take classes in person, and I'm able to do group meetings in the library, and I am able to kind of have those moments and have those appreciations, especially with stuff like environmental science. Like I was talking about earlier during this panel last semester, I had forest ecology, and every Friday morning I would go out to the Hadwin Arboretum and I would be in nature, and I would be measuring, trees and circumferences and doing dendrochronology labs and things of that sort. And that was such a nice break from doing school online, because, I got to see some masked faces and hang out outside doing things that I knew were directly related to my classwork. And knowing when I got home to do my lab that I had collected my lab data myself, despite the fact that it was a pandemic, which felt very, very good to me. And I think that all of the skills courses, even I took a geographic information science class that had to go online last semester, right, spring of 2020. And that's a hands-on skill that was able to be taught to me online very well by professors who took the time to say, I have long office hours. We're going to make this asynchronous so that it can work for you. You don't always have to turn your camera on. We don't know what your home situation is. We're very understanding about this kind of stuff, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, I will also say there have been some surprising benefits from Zoom. For instance, every year I have a panel of law students, Clarkies who are current law students or very recent grads. And of course, in normal times, they would have to be in driving distance so they could come into campus and meet in person with the pre-law students. But a week or so ago, I had students, had a law student at GW who was able to Zoom in. I had a law student at Harvard who's actually living in Orange County, California, because Harvard is all online these days. And he was able to Zoom in, as well as some others who would be in normal driving distance. So there were some surprising benefits to having people on Zoom. I also did a panel of law school admissions professionals in the fall. And again, normally I would have to rely on people who could drive in, but I was able to get people from GW or St. John's Law, as well as Boston area law schools. So there have been some surprising benefits to the Zoom world, but we're all very, very happy that we're able to teach in person now too.
Oh, yes. You're right. There are some benefits. I mean, after I got done crying about the whole thing being online, Eureka, you're right. The Eureka judges, we had one that was in El Salvador. And that's where she lives. She's an alum from El Salvador, started her business there, and we Zoomed her in. So you're right. There have been some benefits. And we just, like I said, after I picked myself up off the floor and said, oh my goodness, we're going to have to do Eureka and these hands-on classes online, you just found the benefits of it. And again, innovation, entrepreneurship, these students were exceptionally innovative.
I don't know if anybody knows anything about the HERO program or could speak to that at all.
I cannot, but I do have the link if that would be helpful for the person who asked that.
That would be wonderful. I know we have a student ambassador in our office, Alvaro, who has done the HERO program. Alvaro talks about it on our information sessions when we do those. So I would say if you want more information about the HERO program, definitely feel free to email us at admissions@clarku.edu, and we would happy to connect you to Alvaro, who can talk to you a little bit more about it.
And that program, I believe, is housed at the geography department.
Yes, yep.
So the geography department may be able to help with questions about that as well.
Mm-hmm. And the last question is about the psychology major offering hands-on learning. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that. I would say psychology is the most popular major at Clark. I think that's one of the things we're most known for. Lots of psychology students doing research, tons of psychology students kind of being able to form their own research interests, work with professors on research, being published and presenting at conferences. So I definitely think the psychology program has a lot to offer in terms of hands-on learning. I know there are many POP classes within the psychology major as well. They'll kind of give you the opportunity to work within the local community with different nonprofit organizations. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities within the psychology major for hands-on learning. So I think that's it for our questions right now. I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I really appreciate our panelists for taking the time to be with us and answer all of your questions. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to email us at admissions@clarku.edu or anything related to financial aid at financialaid@clarku.edu. We're always happy to connect you to other professors, other faculty members, other students on campus to see if we can answer any other questions that you may have about Clark. So thanks again for tuning in. We hope that you'll join us for another webinar. We're offering a number of these throughout the next month or so. In addition, we are offering guided tours for our admitted students. So we hope that if you're able to make it to campus, that you'll come and see campus and take a tour. So until next time, thanks everyone for joining us, and I hope everyone stays healthy and stays safe. Have a good night.
Thank you.